In a world where power can buy anything, one thing still remained priceless: life itself. When a mafia boss's son was dying, no doctor in the country could save him. But destiny had other plans. Hidden in the hands of a cleaning lady's daughter, a black medical prodigy who would defy every rule of power, class, and fear itself. The Romano mansion stood like a fortress of opulence, its marble floors reflecting the soft glow of crystal chandeliers. Laughter and music filled the grand hall, yet beneath the veneer of celebration lay an undercurrent of tension. Every servant moved with careful precision, aware that a single misstep could invoke the wrath of Vincenzo Romano, one of the most feared mafia bosses in America. His presence commanded attention, and his gaze alone could silence the room. Guests smiled politely, nodded respectfully, but none dared forget whose house they were in. At the center of it all, Luca Romano, the teenage heir to this empire, laughed freely, a rare glimpse of innocence amidst a world ruled by fear. Suddenly, that laughter was cut short. Luca's chest heaved, his face twisted in pain, and then he collapsed to the floor with a convulsive jerk. Blood trickled from his nose, staining the pristine carpet beneath him. The room erupted into chaos. Vincenzo's shouts boomed over the panic. "Call the doctors, now!" His voice was steel and fire, demanding immediate obedience. Servants scrambled, fear etched into every movement as the boss's private medical team arrived in a flurry of urgency. Specialists from Italy, renowned cardiologists and neurologists, were brought in with private jets and helicopters, their credentials impressive enough to command respect anywhere else. Yet here, their skills would soon prove powerless. Hours passed. Luca's condition worsened with each test and procedure. Doctors scratched their heads, their confident tones fading into anxious murmurs. Machines beeped in rhythm with a heart that faltered and floundered under their attempts. Days merged into nights, and one by one, over 100 medical experts tried and failed. Infectious disease specialists, toxicologists, neurologists, none could identify the mysterious cause. Luca's body betrayed him, organs beginning to shut down as though a hidden force had taken residence within him. Vincenzo's fury grew in tandem with his fear. He paced the corridors, barking orders and threats, his mansion transforming from a palace of celebration into a fortress of despair. Any suggestion that his son might die was met with a lethal glare, a promise that no one would walk away unscathed if they dared speak the truth. Downstairs, hidden in the shadows of the grand estate, Maya Carter moved silently. She was young, brilliant, and underestimated by everyone who passed her. The daughter of Evelyn Carter, the cleaning lady who had served this house for decades, Maya had her own secrets. Though her appearance suggested nothing more than a diligent worker keeping the mansion immaculate, in reality, she was a medical prodigy, her mind trained in biomedical research. She had graduated top of her class, but doors in prestigious medical institutions had closed to her, one after another, simply because of who she was and the color of her skin. Here, in the quiet spaces beneath the chaos, she supported her dreams by cleaning the same floors where doctors and mafiosos moved with arrogance, unaware that genius lingered so close to their feet. From her vantage point, Maya listened intently. The doctors spoke freely, thinking no one could comprehend the intricate layers of symptoms and misdiagnoses. They debated viruses, autoimmune disorders, and rare genetic conditions, yet something in their approach felt wrong to her trained mind. Her eyes narrowed as she analyzed the patterns they had missed. She realized with a quiet certainty that they were chasing the wrong culprit entirely. The treatments they administered were not healing. They were accelerating Luca's decline. The realization was both terrifying and galvanizing. She crouched behind a velvet settee, whispering to herself, "If they keep doing this, he'll be gone by tomorrow." Fear prickled at her skin, a warning she did not ignore, yet resolve hardened in her chest. Her mother's voice, filled with worry, echoed softly in her memory. "Don't get involved, Maya. These people destroy lives." But the thought of turning away felt impossible. She had the knowledge, the skill, and the rare opportunity to intervene. She straightened, determination sparking in her eyes. Then let them destroy mine. I can save him, she whispered back, a quiet vow in the dim light. In that moment, the Romano mansion felt larger and smaller at once. Larger because of the immense power concentrated within its walls, smaller because the path to saving Luca seemed to narrow to a single, courageous choice. Outside, the storm of panic and fear continued, doctors arguing over symptoms, guards pacing, and Vincenzo's fury simmering like molten steel. Inside, in the shadows, Maya prepared herself to step into a world that would never expect her brilliance, a world that had overlooked her for too long. The night held its breath, waiting for the actions of a young woman who would soon defy every rule of power, class, and fear to save a life that seemed beyond hope. And in the quiet corners of the grand hall, her whispered promise lingered, unseen but resolute. She would not fail. Night had draped the Romano mansion in a suffocating darkness, its lavish halls now silent except for the occasional distant footsteps of guards patrolling corridors. In the shadows, Maya Carter moved like a ghost, her mind racing with every symptom, every overlooked anomaly from the doctor's reports. The restricted medical suite loomed ahead, a room fortified with locks, alarms, and men whose loyalty to Vincenzo Romano was measured in blood. Yet she pressed on, nimble and unnoticed, her heart steady beneath the weight of fear and purpose. Inside, tables were littered with lab results, X-rays and vials of experimental drugs, evidence of hundreds of doctors' failed attempts. Maya crouched over the charts, scanning the data with eyes sharpened by years of clandestine research. There it was, subtle but undeniable, traces of a rare synthetic toxin engineered to mimic a natural virus, yet far more insidious. It attacked neural cells directly, bypassing conventional defenses. Recognition struck her like lightning. She had seen this before during her secret internship on nanopathogens, a military project designed to treat rare neurological conditions but later buried when she exposed corruption. Only she knew its behavior intimately, its progression, its weaknesses, and, crucially, the antidote that could counter it. A surge of adrenaline mingled with fear. She was aware that one misstep could cost her life, yet the thought of leaving Luca to die was unbearable. By morning, Maya had formulated a plan. She approached Vincenzo's guards at the entrance, her demeanor calm but unwavering. "I need to see the boss," she demanded. The men laughed, amused at the audacity of a cleaning lady's daughter standing before them with such certainty. "The janitor's kid thinks she can talk to Vincenzo Romano," one sneered, his eyes glinting with contempt. But before they could dismiss her, Vincenzo himself appeared, drawn by curiosity and the weight of desperation. He regarded her silently for a moment, measuring her audacity, his eyes narrowing as if reading her mind. Finally, he gestured sharply, commanding the men to step aside. Inside the suite, Maya faced the Mafia boss, her voice steady as she explained the toxin's behavior. She outlined how each treatment had accelerated Luca's decline, turning expert knowledge into lethal error. Vincenzo listened, disbelief etched across his face, his usual composure threatened by the clarity of her observations. Her confidence was unnerving, her calmness almost impossible to ignore. The room seemed to contract with tension as she detailed the exact method to counter the poison. Vincenzo, a man accustomed to giving orders and expecting obedience, felt a rare hesitation. "You have 1 hour," he warned, his voice cold but tinged with desperation. "If you fail, you won't leave this mansion alive." Maya met his gaze without flinching, acknowledging the stakes yet unshaken by them. With that, she began. The medical suite, once a place of sterile professionalism, became a laboratory of improvisation. Maya scavenged what she could, leftover antidote compounds, unused vials, even sterile cleaning tools, and began assembling a serum capable of neutralizing the synthetic toxin. Evelyn, her mother, hovered nearby, trembling yet resolute, ready to assist with precise movements that had been honed from years of silent support. Every second mattered. Every measurement, every drop, carried the weight of Luca's life. Outside, the doctors watched, skeptical and suspicious, their hands idle, unwilling to trust a child of a maid over their years of experience. Finally, the serum was ready. Maya approached Luca's bedside, her hand steady despite the pounding of her heart. She injected the solution into his IV line, the moment stretching into eternity. Monitors beeped erratically as the doctors protested, arguing that her methods were reckless. The heart monitor flatlined for 3 tense seconds. Vincenzo's hand instinctively moved toward his gun, a reflex of fear and rage. And then, a gasp. Luca's chest rose, his eyes fluttered open, and color returned to his face. The monitors stabilized, each beep affirming the impossible. Silence fell, heavy and absolute. The doctors stared in disbelief, their pride shattered, their arrogance undone. Vincenzo remained frozen, his expression a mix of awe, relief, and incredulity. Slowly, his voice broke through the quiet. "You just brought my son back from death." The words hung in the air, a verdict as much as a question, carrying the weight of a father's gratitude and a world forced to recognize brilliance where it had least expected it. Maya allowed herself a quiet breath, her resolve unbroken despite exhaustion, knowing the fight was far from over. Outside, the mansion seemed to hold its breath with her, awaiting the next move in a game of power, deception, and courage. For tonight, she had defied every expectation, and the impossible had become reality. The Romano mansion had transformed into a labyrinth of vigilance. Guards patrolled every corridor, eyes sharp and unblinking, ensuring that Maya Carter's movements were monitored at all times. Luca Romano, once on the brink of death, now lay in a delicate balance between life and frailty. His body was healing, but the neural shocks returned unpredictably, violent reminders that the poison had left its mark. Maya stayed close, night and day, adjusting her formula, monitoring his vitals, recalculating doses, and observing subtle responses that no doctor had noticed. Every detail mattered. Every second counted. She moved with quiet authority, a presence that seemed almost invisible to the soldiers and doctors surrounding her, yet impossible to ignore for the life she was saving. Vincenzo, observing her dedication, made generous offers, his voice unusually gentle yet commanding. He promised her wealth beyond measure, a fully equipped laboratory, protection from any enemy, even the loyalty of men who feared him without question. But Maya's eyes, sharp and unwavering, reflected only one truth. She was not there for power, money, or recognition. She was there to save a life, and nothing else would satisfy her conscience. Each refusal of his offers only heightened Vincenzo's respect, though he masked it with the same iron-cold gaze that had once silenced hundreds. Suspicion gnawed at Maya's mind. This poison, so precise, so malevolent, was no accident. Someone had engineered it with intent, and the more she observed, the more clues emerged. Chemical residues in the IV bags, tampered lab equipment, unusual delivery logs. Each anomaly pointed toward a pattern too deliberate to ignore. Her investigations led her to Dr. Alan Royce, Vincenzo's trusted medical advisor, a man whose credentials were impeccable but whose loyalty was now in question. Evidence accumulated. Lab notes linking Royce to clandestine communications with a rival cartel, toxic samples in secret containers, and files detailing Luca's symptoms that only someone with inside access could produce. The betrayal cut deep. A man sworn to protect life had plotted to destroy it, weaponizing the very trust placed in him. Maya knew confronting him would be dangerous. Alone, she approached Dr. Royce under the pretense of assisting with Luca's ongoing care. The confrontation was tense, Royce's arrogance masking the threat behind his polite words. He warned her, his tone a venomous whisper, "No one will believe the maid's daughter. You have no authority here, and if you speak, you will be silenced." But Maya, clever and prepared, had anticipated this. She had a security tablet hidden in her lab coat, recording every word, every confession. Royce, unaware, continued boasting of his treachery, outlining the methods he had used and the chaos he intended to create. Before Maya could retreat, Royce struck. The tablet clattered to the floor, screens flickering as part of her research was destroyed. She barely escaped the sudden brutal assault, clutching her side as pain seared through her. Evelyn, ever vigilant, intercepted her daughter and concealed her in the laundry room, a cramped sanctuary of safety amidst the sprawling mansion. Maya's breaths came in shallow bursts, but determination burned through the pain. The recording was intact, the evidence undeniable, and she had lived to deliver it. Night fell over the estate, shadows deepening as fear and betrayal mingled in every corner. Evelyn, summoning courage she had long kept hidden, approached Vincenzo personally. The weight of her own loyalty and the peril of her daughter's life gave her resolve. She handed over the tablet, her hands trembling, her voice steady. "This is the truth. You need to see it." Vincenzo, a man whose empire had been built on fear and power, sat in silence as the recording played. Words of deceit, plotting, and murder filled the room, each confession unraveling the carefully constructed world he had trusted. The screen darkened, leaving only the dim reflection of Vincenzo's face. Rage contorted his features, but it was a controlled, calculated fury, far more dangerous than blind anger. His lips pressed into a thin line, his eyes narrowing as he absorbed the depth of the betrayal. Finally, he exhaled, a cold, deliberate silence settling over him. "He tried to kill my son, and framed my house," he muttered, the weight of the words heavy in the room. His gaze lifted, locking onto Maya through the eyes of his men. There was no softness, yet an unspoken acknowledgement of her courage and brilliance. "Maya," he said, his voice a measured command, "tomorrow, you lead the cure, and I handle the traitors." In that moment, the mansion felt simultaneously larger and smaller, the walls echoing with the tension of revenge, the anticipation of justice, and the fragile hope of healing. Maya's resolve, tested and tempered by danger and deception, had only grown stronger. She knew the final confrontation was imminent. The cure, the truth, and the reckoning all lay ahead. Outside, the storm of fear and power continued to swirl. But inside, a new order was emerging, built not on arrogance or intimidation, but on intellect, courage, and an unwavering commitment to life. And as the night deepened, Maya allowed herself a single thought, whispered beneath the weight of exhaustion and adrenaline. She would not fail. Luca would live, and the poisoner would pay. The Romano estate trembled beneath a storm-lashed sky, lightning slicing through the darkness, casting fleeting shadows across its ornate walls. Gunfire echoed from the outer courtyards as Vincenzo's men moved with ruthless precision, purging the traitors who had dared betray the empire. Inside, Maya Carter worked tirelessly, her hands trembling from exhaustion and the strain of hours spent synthesizing the final serum. Every second mattered. The last batch of antitoxins, precious and limited, lay before her, and she knew this would be her only chance to save Luca. Pain shot through her body, fatigue threatening to overwhelm her, yet she refused to relent. Fear, adrenaline, and determination coalesced into a singular focus. He would live. Luca's monitors screamed in alarm. His body, fragile and battered, rejected the treatments that had once stabilized him. His pulse dipped dangerously low, his breaths shallow, and color drained from his face. Maya's heart pounded, every instinct screaming urgency. She worked with methodical precision, measuring, mixing, and recalibrating, aware that any mistake could be fatal. The storm outside mirrored the chaos within the mansion. Windows rattled, thunder rolled, and yet in this maelstrom, Maya moved with a quiet, deadly focus. Evelyn, her mother, stayed close, offering silent support, her hand gripping Maya's, lending strength and reassurance where words could not. Minutes stretched into eternity. Luca's condition worsened, and Maya's mind raced through formulas and sequences, recalling every detail of the toxin's behavior. Her instincts, honed through years of hidden research and clandestine learning, guided her hand. Finally, the serum was complete, a delicate solution promising life where death had lingered. Maya approached Luca's bedside, her eyes locking onto his pale face, his chest rising in shallow, uneven breaths. She whispered under her breath, a silent prayer mingled with determination, and injected the final serum into his IV line. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. The monitors flatlined, the storm outside punctuating the tension with a deafening crack of lightning. Maya's hands shook, fear clawing at her chest, but she held her ground. Evelyn's grip on her hand tightened, grounding her, a reminder that she was not alone. Then, as if the world itself had exhaled, Luca's chest rose more steadily, color slowly returning to his cheeks. His eyes fluttered open, focusing first on the ceiling and then on his father, a weak but genuine smile breaking across his lips. Relief surged through the room like a tidal wave, washing away hours of tension, fear, and despair. Vincenzo, who had stood in silent vigil throughout the ordeal, sank to his knees beside his son. Tears, silent and unbidden, traced paths down his weathered face. The weight of power, wealth, and fear melted in the presence of a single truth. Life had been restored through courage, knowledge, and the bravery of one unexpected soul. He turned to Maya and Evelyn, his expression transformed, no longer that of a boss issuing commands, but a father and a man humbled by extraordinary courage. "From today," he said, voice steady yet carrying immense gravity, "no one in this house calls you servants." He offered Maya anything she desired, a fully funded research institute, resources beyond imagination, protection that even his rivals would fear. Maya paused, considering the weight of such power, then shook her head. Her focus had never been on wealth or recognition. Instead, she asked for something far greater, that Vincenzo use his influence to build hospitals for underprivileged children, those who had never received a chance at care or healing. She asked that her knowledge, her skill, and the resources he commanded be used to save lives beyond this mansion. Beyond this night, Vincenzo regarded her for a long moment, the storm outside echoing the storm of thoughts within him. Then, with a nod of solemn agreement, he promised to honor her request. The empire he had built on fear and loyalty would now bear the mark of compassion, guided by a single act of selfless courage. Maya and Evelyn left the mansion together, stepping into the first light of dawn. The sun broke over the horizon, its rays cutting through the storm clouds, illuminating the world in a golden glow. It was a symbol of rebirth, justice, and the triumph of courage over power, fear, and prejudice. In that quiet moment, as the mansion faded behind them and the city awoke to a new day, a singular truth remained. Sometimes, healing does not come from wealth, authority, or intimidation, but from the courage to care when no one else dares. Lives are saved not by fear or control, but by brilliance, determination, and the unwavering choice to act when the world expects inaction. And in the stillness of the morning, Maya Carter walked forward, her heart steady, her mind resolute, knowing she had rewritten fate for one boy and perhaps for many more to come.